Hello, everyone. I'd like to speak out on this wave of propaganda that is being perpetuated by mainstream media outlets, saying that Black Americans are attacking Asian Americans. I know that they kept running old footage of a mentally disturbed person again and again. I think that was maybe a couple of months ago. But this is a good example of white supremacy pushing propaganda through media to make us, Black Americans, look like the culprits. So last week we had a guy by the name of Robert Aaron Long who went to Asian massage parlors and goes on a domestic terrorist shooting spree. And he's a white guy, 21 years old. And he ends up murdering 8 people. 6 were Asian women, and there was a Caucasian man and a Caucasian woman. As per usual, law enforcement went into public relations mode, trying to humanize Robert Long, a white domestic terrorist. And I might get in trouble for saying that, but it's true. That's what it is, a terrorist attack. And the media says that he has a sex addiction and that he was a quiet, church-going individual. And law enforcement said that his crime was not racially motivated and that he simply had a bad day. Well, no, I'm not buying it. Not from law enforcement and not from the media. What I do know for a fact is that Black people are the main target for white supremacy, whether it comes from whites, Hispanics, Latinos, Asians, or even Blacks, who will receive some type of benefit from being in lockstep with this wicked system. Some of you may not know this, but during the 1940s and 1950s, Asian immigrants started coming into the country. The whites did not allow Asians in their neighborhoods. They weren't even allowed to have businesses there. A lot of the Asians went over to the Black communities to live because they were open to them. And most of us accepted the Asian community with open arms. Within the Black community, the Asians established businesses and we supported them. And during the Civil Rights Movement, Asian businesses, some of them were vandalized along with Black businesses. And a lot of Asians began to have the sentiment and conversations about amongst themselves that they should stay away from Black people. Even when foreigners come into the country, when immigrants come into the country, one of the first things they're told is to stay away from us, Black people. I heard a story once. There was an Asian lady and her kids who came to America, and they were at a restaurant with a few white men. And this person who overheard them talking was a waiter at that restaurant. And they overheard these white men telling them that they should avoid any kind of interaction with Black people because we are at the bottom of the caste system and that we always have ulterior motives. Well, let me tell you something right here and right now. One of our greatest assets and shortcomings as Black people is our loving hearts and acceptance of all people. And I'm not saying that all of us are this way, but the majority of us are, myself included. Yes, there are some of us who are bigoted, but none of us are racist by definition. If you look up the word racist, how could a Black person be racist? But yes, a Black person can be bigoted. We don't have systems to oppress people. So during the Civil Rights Movement, the white supremacist power structure gave Asian Americans the title of the model minority. They were not okay with that name. The difference is that Asians were not being targeted by white supremacists like Black people were. Their fathers were not being lynched. Their daughters were not being sexually assaulted by white men. Black women and black girls had to be extra careful because they were at risk of being sexually assaulted by gangs of white supremacists, or even a single person who was just that. But no one talks about this, not even the Me Too movement. The Asian community largely benefits from black people supporting their businesses that are located in a predominantly black area, such as nail salons, beauty supply stores, Asian cuisine restaurants. And none of these businesses usually hire black people. That's fact. They take this money back to their community and they send their kids off to Ivy League colleges. They build intergenerational wealth. All of this is being subsidized by black Americans. Over the course of the last few years, I've seen some videos. I saw video footage of Asian men putting their hands on black women and physically attacking them. During the pandemic that was last year, I saw Asian businesses in Asian countries not allowing Africans or blacks into their establishments. Asian landlords were evicting black and African tenants because they think that all of them spread COVID-19. I'm not saying that all Asians are bad. I know that there are a lot of great ones out there. Kudos to you. But I will not be blind to what I have bared witness to. Yes, there have been Asians who have been mistreated, attacked by some black people, but the number is too small to say that we are attacking Asians. If a black person or anyone is attacking an Asian or whoever, yes, it is wrong and it must stop. But all of this racism and hate stems from white supremacy. That's the root of this problem. We need to focus our time and energy on eradicating this wicked system. It has been embedded deep into the fabric of this country and throughout the world. I'll share a couple of stories with you right now. This happened to me a little over a year ago. I was looking for a place to live at the time, and I showed up at this lady's house who was Asian to see the room that she had available. The whole time I was there, she was acting really strange. She didn't want me to walk behind her, so I walked in front of her. And once I told her that I was a musician, she completely changed her tune. And I thought that was really strange. She was Korean. So I ended up living there for 3 months. Initially, we got along great. I enjoyed her company and she enjoyed mine. She always wanted me to pay her in cash, so I always went out of my way to pay her in cash for rent. And a few weeks after that, these two white guys moved into the other vacant rooms in the house. They were both pilots who were in town for training. They were only going to be there for a little while, for a few weeks. Everyone got along okay, but I noticed that once they moved in, the lady, I'll call her Kim, was different towards me. And sometimes I would listen from upstairs, or I wouldn't listen, but I could hear the conversations that she was having with these two guys. And it was always respectful. I didn't sense any type of disrespect coming from anyone. But I noticed that when she would talk to me, she would talk at me and talk down to me and purposely try to start arguments with me. So I mentioned it to one of the guys. They were nice to me for the most part, to my face. And they told me, well, she thinks that you're kind of negative and, maybe you should talk to her. I said, yeah, I think I should. So one night we're having a conversation. I'm in the kitchen, I'm making dinner. And I could sense that she was trying to start an argument with me. But I didn't let up because I knew what she was trying to do. And then she just storms out of the room and goes upstairs and says, oh, it's just getting too stressful. It's just getting too stressful. And I was thinking, what in the world is wrong with this lady? So she goes to her room. She slams the door behind her. And I'm at the bottom of the stairwell, and I call her name, Kim. I told her that was very rude of you. And she didn't say anything. Then, the days following, she completely ignored me. The guys were still talking to me. One day, we were at home, myself and Kim. The guys were gone. And I asked Kim, do you have a moment to talk? And she told me, no, I don't want to talk to you. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And I asked her, we should talk. Obviously, there's a problem, and I think it's best we talk things out right now or later. And she just blew up at me. Leave me alone. She completely just shut me out. So I told her, okay, once my lease is up, I will be leaving. I will not be renewing my lease here. And she said, I don't care. You can leave now for all I care. Go. And I told her, I noticed that you are nice to the other guys. You're very friendly with them and respectful. But you're different towards me now. You're different with me. And she told me, well, they don't really like you either, They just pretend like they like you. And I found out that one of the guys actually had a crush on her. And I could tell by the way he was looking at her in the kitchen. So I talked to the guys about it, and they said, well, you should just give it time. But I knew that one of them, or maybe both of them, were involved in turning her against me like that. She was in a relationship, an abusive relationship with this white guy who lived in a different house. And she told me that he was racist. And I told her, I don't care. As long as he doesn't bother me. And after that, things were okay between us, but we didn't really talk for the most part. The guys ended up leaving. And one day I was in the kitchen. I was barbecuing that day, so I was heading outside. And she just blows up at me and throws the kitchen rag at me. And I told her, hey, don't you throw things at me like that. And that was pretty much the last argument we had. But long story short, those guys ended up moving out. One of them did, in fact, have a thing for her. And he told her right before he left. And all she could say was, namaste. I ended up leaving. Things were okay. I no longer paid her cash for rent. I would give her a money order each time for rent. I felt, why should I go out of my way for someone who doesn't respect me? And I left. And this is a short story. This happened a while ago, years ago. I was at work one time. I was in the break room. I think I was taking a 15, not a full lunch break. And I was just in there by myself, minding my own business. think I was looking at TV or something, what was on TV. And there was a Korean girl who worked there. She was, I don't know, maybe late teens, early 20s at the time. And we were talking. We would talk from time to time. And a few minutes into our conversation, she just kind of lets out a sigh. And she says, I was presenting male at the time. She says, I could never date a black guy. And I was thinking, now, why would she say something like this? I have shown no interest in her at all. Why is she telling me this? And I said, oh, okay. Why not? And she told me, well, my mother, she wants me to be with a Korean guy or a white guy. But she said absolutely no black men. And if she were to ever do that, she would disown her. And she told me that a lot of Koreans do feel this way. I told her, well, that's their problem, not mine. There was another time, I'm sorry, I have a lot of stories. I'm not that old, but I've been through a lot in my life. This happened. My roommate, this guy owned the house. This was many years ago. We had Asian neighbors. The husband was from China and the wife was from Korea. They were nice people. I knew them through my roommate. And everyone got along fine. It was a week before. They invited my roommate and myself to their house for dinner. His parents were in town visiting. And we all had a good time. There was another guy there, a white guy, who was, I guess he worked with the Asian guy, the Chinese guy. And we all got along. And the next week, my roommate invited all of them at dinner. Actually, he announced it, maybe a little before that he was going to have dinner for them at his house. And that he invited everyone, even his friend, he invited him too. His friend was white, but he was so obsessed with Asian culture. I'm talking really obsessed. So the day comes for them to have dinner at our place. And my roommate, he went all out. He spent all day cooking, cleaning. Everything had to be perfect. I was thinking, wow, he's really going out of his way for these people that he's only known for such a short time. And I think we're supposed to have dinner around 3 or 3:30 that day, maybe 4, I don't know. But the time for them to show up comes around. Then another, I don't know, half hour passes. So I told him, okay, well, what I'll do, I'll go walk down to their house. They live maybe further down the block. So I walked over to their place and knocked on the door. His father answered the door. His father was, I don't think he had any shoes on. He was dressed in t-shirt, house clothes that you would lounge around in the house. And the other guy, no one was dressed, really. Everyone was pretty much in there wearing house clothes. Clothes that you would not wear out in public, let alone to a neighbor's house. And I was thinking to myself, wow, they didn't even plan on coming. I can see that with my own 2 eyes. So I just said to them, well, everything's ready whenever you guys are ready to come over for dinner. About 20 minutes later, they all show up. I didn't tell my roommate because I felt sorry for him. He was a black guy. And that's completely by coincidence. I don't care who I live with, as long as you're respectful towards me. But I didn't tell him. I never told him what I saw when I went over to the neighbor's house. That they looked like they didn't plan on coming. Because I knew that he put a lot of time into making sure that they had a good experience at his place, at his house, at his home. There was a time, around this time, I locked myself out of the house and I had no way of getting in. So I called my roommate. He was a social worker at the hospital, one of the hospitals here in town. And he had no way of coming back to the house to let me in. But he told me, well, if you could come here somehow, I could give you the key. So I told him, well, my car keys are inside. I have no way of getting there. So I told him, okay, I'll go to the neighbor's house, the Chinese neighbors. So I walked over there. His wife was home, and they had just had a son. Or no, a daughter. So she willingly drove me to the hospital to get the key from my roommate. Very nice of her to do that for me. And there was another time I picked his wife up from the airport because he was out of town. He was an engineer, I believe. And I picked his wife up from the airport, gave her a ride, drove her back to her house. And they invited me out to dinner. It was a Korean restaurant. It was really good. So what I'm saying is that not all of my experiences with Asians were negative experiences. And it would be wrong for me to say that all Asians are against me. I don't believe that. And I don't believe that all that all blacks are against Asians. Last week, I was at the park. I was going on a walk. There was an Asian lady there. She was sitting down. I had never seen her there before. And the look that she gave me, she just stared at me and looked at me like I was going to attack her. And I almost said hello to her, but I stopped myself. I just gave her a smile. And I walked past her again, my second time around the lake there. And again, she gave me the same look. And I smiled at her. But it's really sad that the media is putting out this propaganda against us, black people, saying that we are attacking Asians, that a wave of us are. That's not true. So don't believe that. Don't believe any of it. The enemy here is white supremacy. That needs to be addressed. It needs to be destroyed if we're ever going to move forward as humans. I don't know if this video will be flagged for some of the things that I've said. And that's okay because I'm all about telling the truth. Because if I'm not telling the truth, then I'm lying. And I don't like lying. Lying is wrong. Have a good day, everyone. Be safe.